my name is Sasha and I'm 19 years old. I've been a part of GSG for 2 years. I went when I was 16 and 17 to Ukraine with a group of girls. And this video is to kind of tell you a little bit about how GSG impacted my leadership skills and how the trip itself impacted what I learned about myself and what I learned about being a leader. And so I have a little list going on over here, so if you see me looking somewhere else, it's because I'm looking at my list. But I'm mostly going to start with number one on my list, which is that the trip impacted my awareness of cultural differences and how to use that as a learning opportunity to reflect on the types of ways we lead multiculturally. So obviously the US and the Ukraine are two different cultures, two different countries. So the way we lead is going to be different in two different countries, two different cultures, just like you would with Japan or with China. It's a very different approach. And I think that that's actually very important to learn now because the world is constantly connected with this new media, with new technology, that if you don't know how to adapt to new forms of leadership, it can be stressful. So you have to know how to manage that. And I think that was interesting to see, especially when we did the youth forum, to see the different types of leadership that people presented and how you work with that. And it's, as being the foreigner and you're taking on a leadership role, you don't want to overstep your bounds. So how do you be successful? How do you be respectful and understand culture as a leader? So that was one thing that I learned. Second thing was it impacted me to see how when a country is currently going through a change and transitioning its own political leadership, so Ukraine's transitioning its own political leadership, how that affects the environment of the public. So now we're talking about Ukraine's going through this political change, and so the people in the country are going through this transition of being more open about how they feel about their country, how they feel about their leadership, right? And it's important for a leader to take that opportunity to really listen and understand what people want because they're very vulnerable when there's this kind of transition. And you can't be a successful leader at all, ever, if you don't listen to people, because 90% of being a leader is listening and then 10% is taking action on it, right? Because you're not representing yourself, you're representing the people. And so it's interesting to go into a country that's currently facing a political transition because they're so riled up about what they can change, right? And so how do you harness that information and how do you approach it in a way where you don't overstep your bounds and where you want to be a catalyst for them, but again, it's what they want, not what you want, right? So that's another thing I learned is we're specifically in a country that the environment of the public is different than what it is here because we're not going through the same type of revolutionary change, right? And then the third thing is actually something I learned about myself, and that was that there's a lot of judgments and predisposed opinions that I had about the way that the world works, and coming into a cultural experience that exposes you to differences than what you expected forces you to adapt. Like you are now in Ukraine, so you're forced to adapt to it because you're in their culture, you're not in yours. So how do you use that, to, again, improve your leadership skills, right? It goes back to my first point about you really need to learn how to be a leader multiculturally because you can't do that nowadays without knowing how to do that. And yeah, those are the three things that I learned. So culture, listening, harnessing people's vulnerability in a time of political instability, or in a time of any instability, or in a time of any transition and change. And pretty much, if you have expectations and judgments and opinions, prepare for them to change because they will, because that's how the world works. And that's what I learned on my trip, and this is now approaching 5 minutes, and I was only told to speak for 3, so I'm sorry, bye.